Hello, everybody, whoever's out there. Currently 0 viewers, but that'll change. Today's the 76th anniversary of the Nakba, of the catastrophe, of the massacres and of unknown numbers of Palestinians and the expulsion of 750,000 people. And that began when the United Nations declared that half of Palestine did not belong to the Palestinians anymore, arbitrarily. And this song is really all about that. I wrote it 20 years ago or so. I was born a refugee, and I don't know I'll ever see the old farmhouse I've heard about, but it's where I belong, there is no doubt, 'cause my whole family is from that farm. We never did nobody harm. If you're confused by what you've heard, let me boil it down to a single word. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. I have heard my grandpa say that on the street most every day the neighbors' kids would kick a ball with my dad when he was small. We were Christians, they were Jews, but it was no big deal. Religious views, so it was strange when at the point of a gun across the river we had to run. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. We had Depakote, we had songs, and we all knew where we belonged. We grew crops, life was good there in the land where Jesus stood. Now we're scattered everywhere, but there's no peace anywhere. And I'm just searching for some kind of sign, for some way back to Palestine. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. As the genocide in Palestine is unfolding, the famine that has long been predicted and the mass dying of disease along with executions is happening. It's underway. They constantly are finding new mass graves in the hospitals every day. The Biden administration chose the anniversary of the Nakba to announce that a $1 billion package of military aid was on its way to Israel. These are for defensive weapons, apparently. They reported. If you listen to the news, you'll hear the press conferences. and the words they choose to describe the facts on the ground. On the Gaza Strip, you can hear the measured phrases, see the trembling lips, uttering words so rarely spoken, eyes open wide as one official after the other speaks of genocide. From the head of each department, you can hear the powerless pleas. The next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. As the fighter jets rain missiles down from way up in the sky, as the tower blocks collapse with each mission that they fly, as the hospitals are targeted along with everything, as the cameras show us the apocalypse they bring. With no buildings, with no homes, when no structure remains, once it's all been leveled by the ships and tanks and planes, every medical practitioner around the earth agrees. The next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. As the Congress writes a blank check to facilitate the slaughter, Biden says he told them to let in the food and water, but they're not, and nothing happens but more destruction everywhere. White phosphorus burning any skin exposed air. Actions making clear that annihilation is the Israeli regime's plan for the Palestinian nation. If you survive the bombings, you don't burn or freeze. The next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. Across the world, from Yemen to Algeria, militias on the move. From Lebanon to Syria, while on the Gaza Strip, if they have a working phone, they're trying to tell us all, just don't leave us here alone. Don't look away as this happens again, while this world still has Palestinians, because for all these refugees descended from other refugees, the next wave of the carnage will be famine and disease. If anybody is from the northwestern U.S. or the west coast of Canada, this weekend I'll be doing gigs Friday night in Edmonds, just north of Seattle, and Saturday afternoon in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Sunday evening in Olympia. And then next weekend I'll be doing a concert in Portland downtown, as well as a Sing Out for Gaza event on Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock, on the 25th, May 25th. Everybody's welcome, especially artists who want to participate. Hit me up if you're one of them. She was looking for a place to have a baby, with the hospitals destroyed. She headed south in a donkey cart to give birth to her little boy. She wasn't lying by a manger, no hay beneath her on the ground. She couldn't hear her newborn's cries, with the bombs exploding all around. There's baby Jesus lying in the rubble, a hungry little bag of skin and bones, with his mother Mary broken there beside him, in the place that they were calling a safe zone. Without a blanket, without a drop of water, nothing between them and the sky. The wise men from the east tried to come to see him, but they're trapped at the crossing in Sinai. There's no fuel for the water pumps, only for the drones always buzzing overhead, reminding every child there beneath them. The next moment it could be your mama dead. There's baby Jesus lying in the rubble, a hungry little bag of skin and bones, with his mother Mary broken there beside him, in the place that they were calling a safe zone. He's the Son of God, said the angel, as the babe began to shiver from the cold. There was a twinkle in his eye for a moment, before the rigor mortis took hold. This prophet who was born to save our species, this child who was the only son of all the tens of thousands killed so far. Now we can add another one. There's baby Jesus lying in the rubble, a hungry little bag of skin and bones, with his mother Mary broken there beside him, in the place that they were calling a safe zone. In the place that they were calling a safe zone. In the place that they were calling a safe zone. As the Israeli military is advancing into Rafah, and of course also attacking at war with Hamas all over the Gaza Strip, but as they are going into Rafah and destroying the place and killing untold numbers of women and children and men, they are killing journalists. They're targeting journalists, and they're targeting the family members of journalists. Those people are all dying in even greater numbers than the average. And I am just, I don't know. I mean, being a daily viewer of Al Jazeera, which has now been banned from Israel and is being blocked from being viewed by any means through Israeli military technology. But it's been taken off of Israeli cable, and of course they are now disallowing Al Jazeera journalists from working in Israel. But Al Jazeera journalists are still in Gaza, and Tariq Abu Azoum and Hani Mahmoud are the sort of voices of Gaza for those of us watching Al Jazeera every day. And this song goes out to Hani Mahmoud and Tariq Abu Azoum and all those beautiful people doing such incredible work as the Israeli tanks and planes are closing in on them. This is a song I wrote about some of their 100 or so colleagues who have been killed already, and hundreds of their family members. It's a song from my album Notes from a Holocaust. Samar Abu Daka had his camera in his hand. He was wearing his helmet and his vest. Like Shireen Abu Akleh and so many others, he was easily identified as a member of the press. They can call the killing indiscriminate, but this isn't exactly true. When they're specifically targeting certain people in order to silence the news, they're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. Ola Atta Tala was slain last week, along with 9 members of her family. They were taking shelter in someone else's home after fleeing Gaza City. Ayet Khadora died alongside an unknown number thus far. Her only dream now was to be killed in one piece so they would know who we are. They're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. Mohammed Abu Hattab with Palestine TV, dead with his family of 11. Mustawa El Sawaf was killed in another, along with his wife and 2 sons. Sari Mansour was killed in an airstrike on a refugee camp. Mohammed Abu Hasira, along with 42 relations, slaughtered with another familicidal stamp. They're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. They hope that if they kill the messengers, they can stop the message getting out. If they can smash all the cameras, silence everyone trying to shout out to the world that might listen and see the horrors happening beneath the Palestinian skies, the slaughter that for now we can still see with our eyes. They're killing off the journalists of Gaza, day after day after day after day, hoping they can hide their crimes this way. Well, I can see your comments. If anybody has any comments, I can see on the screen, whichever platform you're watching on. It's evident to me. Let's see. What was I thinking of? Something, one of the songs I just wrote. What was I thinking of? Oh yeah. The House Un-Israeli Activities Committee. I don't know if people remember or have read about I don't remember it, but I've read about them. The House Un-American Activities Committee, which was very actively wreaking havoc in the early 50s in the U.S. And it's alive and well. And instead of Joe McCarthy, we got Elise Stefanik. Imagine when considering a slogan that it could have various interpretations. If you believe in understanding the other side, then you're clearly much too vulnerable. Open wide if you don't want to be grilled by the Inquisition. If you'd rather avoid such a prone position, if you run a university and act the way you ought, if you think there's a place for nuanced thought, if it's hard to boil down it all to yes or no, if you think context matters and you dare say so, you'd best be out of town when you're the one they pick to go get grilled by Elise Stefanik. You'd better toe the line or else you know what they'll do. The House Un-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you. If you're fond of notions like free discourse, if you think dialogue might be better than brute force, your thinking isn't nearly black and white enough, and in the halls of Congress they'll be talking tough, showing those bureaucrats who knows best, making sure who knows they could be their next guest. Yeah, you'd better toe the line, or else you know what they'll do. The House Un-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you. If you want to keep your job and your donor base, you don't have to come face to face. You'd better call in the police and salute your leader. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister. Make sure they crack the heads of all those Jew haters. So says the queen of the new red baiters. You'd better toe the line, or else you know what they'll do. The House On-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you. The House On-Israeli Activities Committee will be coming after you. Lovely to see you, David Solnit, and all you other wonderful folks watching here. This is a song I wrote at the end of February. On the 25th of February, 2024, in protest against a U.S.-sponsored genocidal war, as bombs were falling and exploding all around, burning up the bodies of the children on the ground, huddling in tents and just waiting to die, this young man could no longer stand to hear the cries. On International Drive in Washington, D.C., young airman walked up to the Israeli embassy. His mothers buried babies who had no milk within, as white phosphorus munitions burned off people's skin, as the troops were firing on those trying to find bread, as the body count was building up to 30,000 dead. Dressed in his fatigues, there on Embassy Row, he announced into the camera this was where he'd meant to go. An act of desperation, and one designed to share the horrors of the crimes being committed over there, like a mirror to the world, so no one could look away from what's happening in Gaza every minute of each day. He stood in front of the building, as ready as he'd get. He put his phone down so he could live stream it on the net. When he lit the fire, on the day he chose to die, with no way to stop the slaughter, at least he had to try. As the flames rose up, yellow, red, and blue, did he look up at the cross and wonder what would Jesus do? Secret Service came to point a gun at Aaron's face. The airman didn't move. He just stood in place. He'd come to make a spectacle. That was understood. If he couldn't stop the war, he'd do what he could. As his body burned before us in an unmistakable sign, again and again he shouted out, "Free Palestine." On the 25th of February, 2024, well, I was hearing on, I believe, now I can't remember which platform it was, Al Jazeera, I believe, that they were interviewing an expert and on the shipping and stuff like that, and asking why we haven't been hearing about so many attacks on shipping. But from Ansar Allah in recent weeks. And I was wondering about that too. Is this just because the media is not mentioning it, or what's going on? And it's largely, they say, because shipping is largely being rerouted, and the ships that Ansar Allah would want to attack are not passing by anymore. the world's trade passes by here. So much of it goes through Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, in the port of Gaza, no ships can arrive, not a boat can leave, while every day hundreds are dying beneath the rain of missiles fired from the air. Millions of starving Palestinians on the run and being slaughtered everywhere. No safe place in the Gaza Strip. No armies coming to defend. While all over the planet, people are asking, when will this savage bombing end? How many more thousands of children can be killed while we stand by? How can we just live our lives while we watch the babies die? Shukran jazilan to the Houthi army standing for the conscience of us all. When they say no business as usual, while the bombs continue to fall. For a country that doesn't have an air force, they're painting black, red, green, and white on the helicopters they use to board the ships to show their cause is right. The president says this terrorism must stop right away, to which the Houthis respond, yes, that's exactly what we are trying to say. Shukran jazilan to the Houthi army standing for the conscience of us all. When they say no business as usual, while the bombs continue to fall. Ships are going all the way around Africa to avoid the Houthi net. If Israel wants trading partners now, they might be just a little harder to get. We can blockade ports all over, north, south, east, and west. But the Houthi army are the ones who are no doubt blocking the traffic the best. Shukran jazilan to the Houthi army standing for the conscience of us all. When they say no business as usual, while the bombs continue to fall. I support the resistance. It's not a fashionable thing to say because you're supposed to just oppose the genocide, but I think it's great when people actually respond to it with force of arms and whatever other means might possibly have any impact. My latest album is called Bearing Witness. It just came out on May 1st, and it's on all the streaming platforms, as is Notes from a Holocaust. And once again, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, I'm playing on Friday night north of Seattle in Edmonds, and Saturday night in Vancouver, BC, Saturday afternoon, and Sunday evening in Olympia. And then next weekend, on the 25th, I'll be playing in downtown Portland and also doing a Sing Out for Gaza event in downtown Portland in front of the World Trade Center, where congressional offices are on First, right there downtown. 2:00 on Saturday, May 25th. If anybody's in Portland and you bring an instrument or art or puppets or anything like that, it's an artists event, and everybody's welcome. But if you want to do anything with the microphone, you have to do art. We're not having any speeches, only music and poetry. And yeah. And I'll be going to California in August going to Australia next month, going to California in August, and I'd love to get more gigs there if anybody is in California. Same goes for Australia, but it's especially true of California in August and Scandinavia in November, as well as the Midwest. Later in August, I'll be going to Chicago for the DNC and also September in Detroit. So I'd love to hear from people. Any of those places can, just drop me a line. And, but I was originally going to say this song is from the first track on my new album, Bearing Witness. All of which has great instrumentation from Chet Gardner, so sounds much more interesting than what you're experiencing now, potentially. This is genocide. It is not a war. It is a slaughter in a ghetto by the shore. A ghetto with no army. A ghetto with no ports. A ghetto under the jurisdiction of military courts. Of an occupying power with the target everyone. Killing them with bombs and chemicals and guns. This is genocide. They're using famine and disease as our lives go on. Just across the seas, the occupying army is imposing starvation on everyone in Gaza, of every station. Parents or children, people anywhere, they're being killed because they're still living there. This is genocide. It's happening now. The Western politicians talk about how they must stop the bombing and let in aid, but the murder continues with American-made missiles and jets with zero regard as the buildings collapse like houses of cards. This is genocide, whether or not the media moguls have decided they've got elections to cover or any number of things more worthy than what is happening in Gaza, where they're facing 2 million dead. That's what the heads of the UN departments all said. This is genocide. And if you disagree, there is a phrase to describe your idiocy. Those who see and then look away, those leaders who talk, but at the end of the day, the hunger, the bombs falling down from the sky is a holocaust that they would rather deny. This is genocide. The parallels between the Third Reich and the Israeli settler colonial regime are not accidental. I used to think they were, but I got older and wiser, learned more about history. It's not an irony, it's a consequence. After so many decades of patronage by the world's greatest empire, after so many potential agreements were rejected by opening fire. They're crushing so many uprisings. Now they're making their ultimate bid, pursuing their final solution, just like the Nazis did. They forced refugees into ghettos, then set the ghettos aflame, murdering writers and poets, and so no one remember their names. Killing their entire families, the grandparents, women and kids, the uncles and cousins and babies, just like the Nazis did. They're bombing all means of sustaining human life at all. See the few shelters remaining, watch as the tower blocks fall. They're bombing museums and libraries in order to get rid of any memory of the people who lived here, just like the Nazis did. They're saying these people are animals and they should all end up dead. They're sending soldiers into schools and shooting children in the head. The rhetoric is identical, and with Gaza off the grid, they've already said what happens next, just like the Nazis did. Words of war for domestic consumption and lies for all the rest, to try to distract our attention among their enablers in the West. Because Israel needs their imports to keep those pallets on the skid. They need fuel and they need missiles, just like the Nazis did. They're using food as a weapon. They're using water that way too. They're trying to kill everyone in Gaza or make them flee, it's true. As the pundits talk of after the war, just like the fall of Madrid, the victors are preparing for more, just like the Nazis did. But it's after the conquest's complete, if history is any guide, when the occupying army is positioned to decide, when disease and famine kills whoever may have hid behind the ghetto walls, just like the Nazis did. All around the world, people are trying to tell there's a genocide unfolding, ringing alarm bells. But with such a powerful axis and so many lucrative bids, they know who wants their money, just like the Nazis did. Just like the Nazis did. All the stuff about, I mean, this is what I get. I don't know if any of you are following me on Facebook, but that's where the Hamas Trolls are focusing their attacks since February. I've been actually getting paid by Facebook a couple $100 last month because of the engagement on my page, which is really bizarre because, as all of you know who are involved with any kind of Palestine solidarity, we don't get engagement on Facebook. With this stuff is totally censored and throttled and shadow banned on Facebook. People don't see my posts related to Palestine. They just don't see them. They don't respond. There's no engagement. No, and then I get messages from people saying they're not able to even share my posts because they've been apparently banned by Facebook for sharing the wrong things. And all this is really it's really quite something that I am getting. I got, in spite of all that, last month, Facebook sent me a notification that I got 27,000 comments on my Facebook page. I think 17,000 of them was on just one post of a picture of friends of mine holding up a banner saying, "Stop the genocide." And I have that banner, incidentally. And if anybody is involved with any campus occupations or anything else happening, I am available to come and hold that banner and, get other people to hold the banner while I sing in some songs with a sound system, which I also have, a battery-powered sound system. So if you're in the Northwest or somewhere else that I'll be going, like Australia next month or California in August, and you want to do some kind of outdoor protesty kind of event with a banner and music and whatever, I am available. Oh yeah, but I thought of that, the Hamas Trolls, because the vast majority of their comments, they've obviously done a poll and done some opinion surveying and whatever, and determined that the talking point of their many talking points that they should be focusing the most on is the idea that Hamas should free all the hostages right now. And of course, they're backed up by the International Court of Justice, who says that along with Israel should also stop bombing them right now. But, of course, they don't mention that part. But they say that, they should just free all the hostages right now. Meanwhile, hostages that actually were roaming around in Gaza got shot by the Israelis. So I don't know how well this freeing the hostages idea is going to go. And the idea, of course, that Israel is going to stop its war when the hostages are freed, which is something that the Hamas Trolls say constantly every day. It's absolutely false. And, all the Israeli leaders have very openly and clearly said they're not going to stop this war until they've destroyed Hamas. Hamas is part of a people's movement. It's a popular movement. It's a popular struggle, a popular organization. It's much more than a military organization. It is a popular movement, just like Hezbollah is, just like Ansar Allah is. And the only way to destroy a popular movement like that is to kill everybody. And the United States is well aware of that. That's why the United States had a genocidal policy when in Vietnam, because the Vietnamese were also led by a popular movement in the form of the Vietnamese Communist Party. And they knew, in the face of a people's war, you kill everybody. And that's what the Israel with U.S. weapons is doing right now. And that's their intent. And they're very open about that they're going to defeat Hamas. And they're very open about Hamas being very popular and being elected, and Hamas being much bigger than just the Hamas military organization. For them, Hamas is everybody who supports Hamas, which is, that's most of the adult population, and certainly the Israelis are very openly talking about how the children are just going to grow up to be terrorists anyway. So they don't then say, okay, so we should just kill them all, but the Hamas Trolls say that. They say that on my Facebook page every day. But this is what happened last time Israel hostages tried to get rescued. They were raising a white flag. They were trying to be rescued. They took off their shirts so they wouldn't pose a threat, just like they were trained to do. They were shouting out in Hebrew, "We're the ones you're looking for." But the soldiers didn't hesitate. They just opened fire, 'cause it's that kind of war. They were raising a white flag in the wrong place at the wrong time. Did they not know the rules had changed now? Existence was a crime. They were people alive in Gaza, where living is compressed between the time when you are born and the time you get bullet in your chest. They were raising a white flag, just more evidence that proves the rules of engagement are shoot anything that moves. When you see the broken bodies of all the children dead, including the ones who were shot point blank at a UN shelter squarely in the head, they were raising a white flag, which moved and made a blip on the screen of their computers. Click the button, let her rip, and blow up the whole building, because you saw someone survived. Because in a war like this, the enemy is anyone left alive. They were raising a white flag. I think it would be hard to overstate how much identity politics is a problem with this movement to in solidarity with Palestine. I'm so glad to see all the campus occupations going on. But the reason why they are so many of the bigger ones, especially before the media started giving it all this attention, the bigger ones, so many of them began in large northeastern universities. Being from the Northeast and having spent much of my adult life performing at college campuses, including large northeastern universities, the reason why the movement took off at those places, I think, is largely because of the large Jewish population there at those campuses. And the reason why that's the case is because of the current political atmosphere in the United States that's been here for a long time, along with other things like propaganda about Israel being a democracy and a haven for the Jews to have safety from fascism and all these other lies. The fact that there is a large Jewish concentration in that area and on those campuses it's not a mistake that the movement is based in those places, because everybody else, or not everybody, but a lot of other people who are not Jewish or not in groups that are led by Jews are afraid to be labeled anti-Semites. And I think that fear of being labeled an anti-Semite for being opposed to Israel's genocide is a stronger fear among the general population in the United States than it is in many, many, if not all, other countries, with the exception of Israel, perhaps Germany. But the reason why that is the case here is because of the mentality that has been promulgated in certain academic circles and activist circles for decades now, that if you're not Jewish, you really have nothing to say about this. This is a Jewish issue. They don't say that directly. This is just the way that the kind of mentality gets interpreted. You can't have an opinion about something unless it directly affects you as a member of an oppressed group. And if you are a member of an oppressed group, then that membership or that group that you claim to be a member of might be a very small group, and it might get smaller all the time, because our definitions of our identities get more and more narrow. And that's also strategic, because the fewer people we identify with, the less solidarity there will be. I see this happening all the time, and I just think it's such a shame how people seem to be so susceptible to this kind of thinking, and because it's so incredibly convenient for COINTELPRO. It's so convenient. You believe anybody who says anything, anybody who claims to be a victim of anything because they're a member of they claim to be a member of an oppressed group, and then they say that they've been victimized by somebody for some reason, and you are required to believe that, or else you are oppressing them. That's the way we are now. This is how it is in the United States, Portland in particular, on the left. It's hopeless. It's a hopeless situation. I'm sorry. I wish it weren't. I wish I could say I had hope. But with this mentality having actually been victorious, with COINTELPRO having taught us how to think, and now we're thinking the way COINTELPRO wants us to think. They won. We're in the FBI's matrix of control. They have taken over our brains. Serious. This is not hyperbole, to use Biden's favorite word. If you are a fan of democracy, if you have a problem with state theocracy, if you're having issues with minority rule or with the propaganda they teach your kids in school, you don't like invading armies bent on thievery, if you think it's wrong to steal someone else's country, there's just one explanation, though it may be getting trite. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite. You don't like the idea of shooting mortar rounds at kids. It must be because you just don't like the kids. Israel bombs hospitals, if you heard that on the news. It must be because that network doesn't like the Jews. All those UN agencies crying genocide secretly still blame us for the way that Jesus died. There's just one explanation we keep within our sights. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite. If you think free speech is a really good thing, if you fear the future that censorship may bring, if you think Mark Zuckerberg is a pawn of the CIA, if you don't believe whatever the Western leaders say, if you march and chant from the river to the sea, if you say you'll keep fighting until Palestine is free, there's just one explanation right there in black and white. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite. If you're not a fan of home demolitions, if you've got some kind of problem with the Zionist position, it can't be that you care about humanity. It can't be that you just want some sanity. If you don't like the slaughter, you'd better just stand by. Don't speak out or else we'll all know the reason why. There's just one explanation, the one from the far right. You must be an anti-Semite. You must be an anti-Semite. Well, it's lovely to see that with my little rant about identity politics. I did not lose any audience members on this broadcast. And if anybody wants to, consider that to be a positive, then feel free. I do. I think there's a lot of people fed up with this stuff. I am very happy to hear about all these campus occupations and very perturbed to have been disinvited to sing at one after driving 100 miles to get there. But I support them anyway, whether or not they think I'm too much of a Nazi to sing at their encampments. It's happening now. It's happening now, like it has before, at the universities. In a time of war, put people together. They'll communicate, talk about things like college and state, talk about the research that built the Iron Dome, talk about their relatives starving back at home, talk about tuition and where the money's spent and where all the buildings in Gaza went. Wake up each morning and the headlines say how many hundreds of Palestinians died today, how many thousands were killed in the past week. People get together, people speak, the newscasters say with surety the campuses lack security. Meanwhile, across the ocean wide, Palestinian genocide, people are saying they won't leave till they win, and then the police are sent in, beaten and arrested, staff and students, and to try to silence this growing movement, they're punishing people for making it known that the direct connection can be easily shown, how the investments of this institution are funding another final solution. Where it goes is anyone's guess. After all, this is the U.S. Battles have been lost and won, but with bombs being dropped every day by the ton, with the orphaned and famished beneath the sky, waiting for the moment when it's their turn to die, some people just can't look away. They have to set up a tent on the campus and say, boycott Boycott, sanction, and divest. 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 Well, thanks to all 101 of you for tuning in and listening. It has been a pleasure. I mean that actually, because I find singing cathartic and therapeutic. So even though I'm singing about genocide, it actually is very good for me, and hopefully it's good for you too in some way. I think it is generally, good to hear people saying what you're thinking and doing it in rhyme. I think that's a very good thing generally, and we need more of it actually. And once again, if anybody's in the Pacific Northwest, I hope to see you in Seattle area Friday night, Vancouver, BC Saturday, Olympia Sunday, Portland next weekend for Sing Out for Gaza in front of the World Trade Center at 2 p.m. Downtown First Avenue, Saturday, May 25th, and then I'll be playing around the corner that evening, a concert at The Zone. And then Australia, late June through late July, California in August. I'd love to hear from anybody from any of those places. Also the Midwest for the DNC in August, and Detroit in September. I need more gigs in all those places. And yeah, there's your non-commercial announcement for the day. All my other Palestine-related songs you can find at davidrovix.com/Palestine. And there you can download them all, play them at protests. I don't need to be there. You can play it through the sound system. I'm on Patreon and Substack, and that's how I survive. So your contributions are very welcome. This song needs a good video, if anyone wants to make one. If a song could bring us together across the planet that gave us birth, to act as one, bring peace and justice all around this shattered earth. If a song could take down borders, take down fences, make them fall, liberate all those imprisoned, kept behind the ghetto walls. If a song could stop the bombs, so the next might be the last. If a song could change the future, so it won't be like the past. If a song could be a missile fired from the Iron Dome, if it could protect the children, keep them safe within their homes. If a song could raise an army and transport it on command, take us all to Palestine to defend the Holy Land. If a song could be concrete and put to use to rebuild, if it might turn back the clock, bring back all the babies killed. If a song could be a blueprint, instructions to show us how. If a song could change the world, then let us do it now. If a song could bring us together across the planet that gave us birth, to act as one, bring peace and justice all around this shattered earth. Keep on keeping on, y'all. Thanks for listening. And I will see you again soon, I hope. In the real world, maybe, if you're in the Northwest or Australia or the Midwest. Okay. Bye. Dahya Palestine.